Hey, and welcome, guys. Today I'm going to be building the 1/12 scale Boba Fett from Bandai. Just a quick look. I've already kind of opened it up and take a look at it. Comes with quite a few parts. They are colored, and I don't think I'm going to try to repaint all this since all these parts are already pre-colored. I think I'll just put it together, maybe do some detail painting, and just do a lot of weathering with it. Dry pastels and washes, things of that nature. We'll chip up or create some chipping effects on some of the armor, as you see here, and maybe put it on some kind of scenic display, which I'm not sure how I'm going to do that yet. I'm going to mess around. I have a couple ideas of how I want to do that, or at least try to do that. So anyway, I'm going to put him together, and we'll go from there. All right, here you can see where I've done some painting. Not painting everything, just kind of a mix of things, like on his armor, on his shoulder pads and knee pads. I did not paint those. I put the decal on. I did some chipping just with a paintbrush and some Vallejo steel colored paint, and then did a flat coat to kind of lock that all in. I may go back in with a little bit more of the steel to make some of the chipping a little brighter, so it'd be like newer chipping on it. So pretty happy how that came out. Again, didn't paint that. On a lot of his clothing here, I first did like a wash to kind of darken up some of the crevices, and then I lightly did a spray coat of just a gray automotive primer. I believe Rust-Oleum automotive primer, and so pretty happy how that's turned out. On here you can see his armor. I've already started assembling his torso. Same thing with his clothing, did some washes and then a gray primer on that. Now I did end up doing a little bit of painting on the armor. It comes in a green color. I did the same thing. I did some chipping with a paintbrush and Vallejo steel. I then went over with a slight misting of this Vallejo light green, 71006, and kind of went over it and toned the plastic down a little bit, and then went back with a little bit of the Vallejo steel to brighten it up again, to kind of give it the effect where some of the chipping's older and it's kind of faded, but then you have some newer chipping. And I did that on the all of his green armor. Now on his jetpack I did a little different. I did do a black primer coat, and then with the green, same green color, I painted it. I did some chipping effects. I did some dry pastel weathering in some of the crevices, and also with even a little bit of kind of a greenish blue, just to kind of mix in some different tones in that and give it a little bit different shade, since it's probably a little bit different. So pretty happy with that. Now there are a couple versions of his backpack. I believe in Empire Strikes Back it's more green, and then in Return of the Jedi it's very colorful. I went with the obviously the easier one to do, and the more green color. I did his old cape here, again with a kind of a black primer coat, and then did some greens. I lightened up the green with some white, and to give it kind of some color variation on that. So pretty pleased with how that's turned out. Same thing with his helmet. I did kind of the green in the same way I did his other armor. Now the kind of the reddish brown, I did not paint that, but I did obviously some chipping effects. Still have some more work. I have to put on the decals, and there's several decals that go on his helmet and throughout his armor, so still working on that, but pretty pleased with how that's coming out. Try to look at screenshots of his helmet to get the chipping as close as possible, but pretty happy with all that. And some of his, I guess the kind of satchel here, and it's kind of that reddish brown color. I didn't like doing kind of primer or base coat on it. I just kind of used some of this brown from Model Air with just a paintbrush, and just kind of highlighted it. Did some dry brushing, especially on the upper edges where it'd probably be more faded more, and maybe do a little bit some washes and a little bit more wearing on that. So getting close to assembling him, I just want to kind of show you the processes I'm going to here. A little bit of mixture of painting, not painting, lots of weathering, some chipping, and sealing it all in with a matte Rust-Oleum clear coat. So I'm going to get them all together, and we'll come back and see what he looks like after he's together. All right, well, here's my finished Boba Fett model. overall pretty good. I did a little bit, well, quite a bit of weathering. Tried to do some highlight painting on some of the raised area of his clothing. Of course, I did all the chipping, as you can see here, all the way around him. Let's see his jetpack, his cape. And my only thing about these Bandai models, they're very cool. It goes together fairly well. A few little issues with some parts. But because they articulate it, you're left with some of these kind of joints that are still visible. Now, obviously, if you could use some putty and fill those in, but at that point, I almost would prefer just like a built model that was already in a pose, and you wouldn't have to worry about all these different joints. That's just a minor little gripe. Overall, looks pretty cool. So from here, I've been kicking around a couple ideas about some display bases for them. For now, I'm just going to do something basic. What I'm planning, I just don't have materials for what I'm thinking about. Just don't have materials for, so I don't want to kind of get too far into it. So I'm just going to take a simple piece of wood, just this scrap shelf that I have, and some of this insulating foam, and just going to build up a little brick wall, kind of paint it, maybe something like inside Jabba's palace, or maybe at the space dock where you can see in the special edition version where he's at the Millennium Falcon. Just something along those lines, some tans and browns, something to give him a little visual interest other than just this little square that he comes with the kit. So I'm just going to do that and start off. You can see I've already kind of cut off a section of this insulating foam. I'm going to cut out some grooves in here. We'll seal it and paint it and weather it. Maybe put some sand or something on the bottom of this so we can have a little texture to it. And we'll just kind of go from there. Here I'm working on my wall for my little scenic display here. I took this insulating foam and first just kind of took my X-Acto knife, cut in some lines, kind of simulate where I want my blocks to be. Didn't worry about didn't really take any measurements, just kind of eyeballing it and not worrying about too much. It's just going to be a little back wall, roughly built, as I kind of would expect the building, on, where that's at Jabba's palace to be, kind of some rough work there. So cut that in. Now I'm taking this more of a blunt, using these tweezers. I have more of a sharp but blunt edge, and then following the lines that I scored in, and just making it a little bit deeper, giving them a little bit more character. And I'm going to do that both the horizontal and vertical lines that we set in. And of course we can beat this up a little bit, give it a lot more character. You can make some deeper, some more shallow, excuse me. See what I'm doing here. And then I'm going to finish that off. You can take like either balled up aluminum foil, or I just use this rock I found out in my yard. It has all these rough edges and textures, and then I can go in and start giving my wall a lot more beat up character just by mashing that in a little bit like that. Excuse me. And you can see how that's turning out. So I'm going to do all that on that, and then we'll attach it to our base and add a sealer to it. Alright, I have my wall attached to the base, this with some hot glue. Here I've mixed up some just ordinary sand, some white glue, a little bit of water and alcohol to kind of loosen it and break it down, make it a little bit into more of a paste. So I'm going to apply this to my ground and to my wall. I'm going to use this sand to kind of fill in this gap between the floor and my wall here, so that looks like a natural kind of built-in thing. I'm also going to spread this all throughout my floor here, and I'll probably throw in a little bit more sand. And I'm just going to brush it onto my wall. Like I said, it does have white glue in it. So that'll help. The paint and white glue will help act as a sealer for my wall, and I'll give the wall some texture. On camera it's looking a bit yellow. It's more of a brownish color here, but It's more of this a primer here than anything else. I'm not too worried about the color at this time. I just threw in some paint to act as a sealer and kind of give us a base going. So I'm going to spread all this on here, and we'll come back once that's dry. Alright, I'm working on my little display base here. I've added in a little plastic bendy straw. I just did some hot glue to kind of secure it in place. This was just greebly out of my parts box. A little black hose, again just hot glued in place. I then put a little white glue and poured some sand on there to kind of blend it into the wall. So I'm going to go ahead and add a primer coat onto this to kind of unify the colors of the surface. Just added on a little automotive primer from a spray can. Looks looking pretty good. Now I'm just going to paint it up in like a sandy brown color and give it a lot of color modulation, weathering, I guess you'd say. Paint up these, whatever these are that I've added on. And then we're going to attach our Boba Fett. Well, here's my finished Bandai Boba Fett. I finished up the scenic display base, just doing some painting, some washes. I had some little greeblies to just give it a little bit of visual interest. I did take a little bit of I had some clear resin from a 3D printer. I mixed in a little green and kind of poured it over, and then put my UV light on it to harden it up to kind of give a spill of some chemicals there. Just something to kind of look at. Finished up all the painting. I did have his little wire, whatever, that comes off his arm bracelet. It broke, so I may have to try to repair that sometime in the future. I think it looks pretty good. Honestly, if I think this is probably not my favorite type of kit, these Bandai figure kits. I just don't care for the joints. There's a weird gap in between his waistline and the belt that just doesn't look natural. I've tried to move that around. But he just kind of ends up looking like a toy figure that you can buy. I know the Black Series makes a very nice one that probably looks better than what I've done here. So I'm just not a big fan of the joints and everything right there. I know it makes it posable. I'm not trying to knock it. It's really good quality, a lot of detail into it. But the drawback is you get these weird joints. If you do move them around, they tend to pull out quite a bit. And so I'm just not a big fan of that. So I'm finished up with him. Hope you've enjoyed the video. And until next time, everybody have a good one.